Good morning to everybody. How you doing? Hope all's well. Keep up the beautiful work. Today is Thursday. Time flies when you're having fun. Parashat Ki Tisa. We also read Shabbat Para Duma this coming Shabbat. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. We're continuing the holy words of the Pele Yoetz. We are in the letter Chet, in the subject of Harata. In the Hebrew book, we are on page Ranach. Resh Nun Chet V'Noach Matzachem B'nei Hashem 258 in the Hebrew English Art Scroll. Volume 2, we are on page 276. The rabbi is discussing having regret if someone did a sin, God forbid, 1,000,000 times, and they really feel bad, then it's not considered the same sin in heaven. They erase it and they rewrite it. And that's the only way to get to Teshuvah, by getting Hashem to forgive the sin totally. You have to ask for forgiveness. You have to also regret, obviously, and you have to say you're never going to do it again. And Hashem has to testify on the person that they're never going to do it again. Now that's a roughie. If Hashem has to testify, Hashem sees the future, and He knows what's going to be. So does that mean a person sins, and then they did a real teshuvah, they regretted, they were in the same situation, they prevailed, they did not sin, and then 3 years later, all of a sudden, boom. So does that mean retroactively the sin comes back? Because God has to testify that they're never going to do it again. And our rabbis explain that the concept of Avera Goreret Avera, one sin leads to another, and one good deed leads to another. Why does that happen? Why does one sin lead to another? Why does one mitzvah lead to another mitzvah, another good deed? The answer is because when a person does an action, there's an energy, there's a light that surrounds that person. If it's a good light, if it's a good energy, then since it's around him, the art of attraction, it causes him to do another good deed. But if a person, God forbid, sins, they create a negative aura around them, and since it's hovering over them, it causes them to do another sin, Shema Yisrael. So now, when a person God forbid, sins, but he really regretted and he really did teshuvah, and Hashem erased that aura around them. So that's what it means that God has to testify he's never or she's never going to do that sin again. It's never going to do it again because of the tainted aura, the aura that's around them that causes them to do it again. But if it's totally clean, and then in 3 years the person does do the sin, it doesn't mean retroactively they were not forgiven. It's a new slate when a person gets rid of that negativity around them. And sometimes, unfortunately, a person could be so habitual in doing a sin that it becomes permissible to them. It becomes no problem. Naseh keheter. And that's what the rabbi discusses. Aval im hurgal ba naseh lo keheter. If a person is accustomed to doing that kind of sin, it becomes permissible. Ulvavo alav lo yichav. And unfortunately, their heart does not bother them for doing the sin. Ki yesh et levavo. In their heart, they ask, Matai tavo liado pamaheret v'yasela. When will I have the opportunity to do that sin again? Aval ha'ish. However, the person, asher naga b'libo yirat Hashem, a person that does have fear of heaven, nafsho lo chiyah, and he lives a life of striving to go higher and higher. And one day, unfortunately, im takfo yitzro va'avare v'ara, and he's on the up and up, and he's a work in progress, and they're going to minyan, and they're going to classes, and they're really working on themselves, what they eat, where they go to eat, right? And then one day, by mistake, he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he ended up sinning. ואז כשנפקתו עיניו בזקנותו, when he gets older, וזוכר את אשר עשה בילדותו, and he remembers what he did in his young age, ליבו יכיל בקרבו חיל כיולדה, like a woman giving birth that has pain, he also has pain. Umar lomar, and he can't understand why in heaven's name did I do that sin. Upalge mayim yerdu me'enav, and he cries and he's tearing like Niagara Falls. Yoter mimish meto mutal lefanav. God forbid, worse than somebody crying for someone being deceased. Shema Yisrael. Ki ken ha'eh v'chen ya'eh lemish himra et pi adonav. And guess what? The rabbi says if a person is crying like that and feels so bad, that is a good thing. Why? Because if someone rebels against the king, what's the punishment? In the old days when a king was a king and there was power and one guy decides to block the king's driveway, a guillotine is not enough in 1 second. Well, if somebody, God forbid, 1,000,000 times rebels against the King of Kings, how bad should they feel? Adon Ramanisa, the exalted Hashem, v'hechiso panav, and God forbid, he made Hashem angry. Ukvar katav Rabbeinu Yonah b'Sharei Teshuvah. Rabbeinu Yonah writes in Sharei Teshuvah, shelefi hayachom anachash yanach b'shevron modnaim alavon, kacha nakelo yinokeh haish me'avon. The more a person cries, the more a person feels bad for the sin that they did, it ends up cleaning more. When a person really feels bad, they're throwing bleach in the soft scrub. They're really getting a true Pesach cleaning. There's a concept in the world. It's called Yisurin Shel Hava. Suffering that is given from above. We should never know. We should always prevail, and everything should always be sweet. But it's given out of love. That's what a person could choose. If a person really feels bad for a sin that they did, that is suffering, feeling bad. And they're doing it out of love for Hashem. Sheba'im lefi rov ha'ava sheyesh lo im haborei yoter v'yoter mebino yechido v'lecho v'nishmato. A person could end up loving the one above even more than their own child. V'lachen rucho elav ya'atzev ech asa hara'a gdola. A person says, how can I do that to the one above? That will be his sustenance spiritually. A person will fix the crookedness that they have by fixing it up, feeling bad. Now we have to know a disclaimer that even though people should feel bad, but a person who sins cannot just say, you know what, I stink anyway, let me lay down in bed and get into a depression. That is wrong. Rav Nachman from Breslov teaches us that we always have to, we sin and we feel bad and we cry, but you got to move on. Because when a person is in depression from it, that's the Yetzer Hara as well. We got to get up and we got to get moving to the next. Be'ezrat Hashem. I hope everyone has the greatest day. Keep up the excellent work. Good things always. Besorot tovot. Yeshuot v'nehamot.